Hey guys, for my last lesson, I want to show you a little bit about the movability of these chords. This is really going to show the beauty of the cage system and just the beauty of this instrument altogether. Any chord shape that you learned, any scale that you're going to learn in the future, anything that you learn on a guitar can be moved anywhere on the neck. Okay, and what that does is it'll change the pitch of what you're playing and change the key of what you're playing it in. So whatever chords you know, you technically know it in any key. Just based on how you move it and what you do with it. I'm going to demonstrate by using what's known as a capo. Okay? So first, let me play an E major shape in the open position for you to play an E major chord. Okay? Sounds like that. Now I'm going to take my capo, and what this does is it clamps onto the guitar and frets all the strings on whatever fret I put it on. So I'm going to put it on the 3rd fret right here. So it's fretting all the strings on the 3rd fret. It's basically becoming its own nut. Okay, so here's the nut right here, and then just kind of moving it up here. So now I'm going to play the same E major shape that I played down here, but since this is my new nut, I'm going to play it right here. And I have this chord. It's still an E shape, but it's not an E major chord anymore because the pitch is higher. Okay, so what if I didn't have a capo? That's a good question. Let's take this off. And now I'm going to use my first finger to pretend it's a capo. So I'm going to kind of clamp down on all the strings here, and then with these 3 fingers, I'm going to play that same E major shape. And I'll get that same sound out of it. Now, like I said, it's the same shape, but it's a different chord. It sounds different. So let's find out what it is. Let's go back to the E major shape. I'm going to switch my fingers around so I can free up my first finger and pretend it's its own nut here. And I'm going to start moving it up. So I've got my E major shape here. I had to refinger it because I wanted to free up my first finger to make its own nut, or my own capo, if you will. And if I'm going to move every note up a half step, same shape, I just moved it. I know the note F comes after E, so instead of an E major chord, I'm now playing an F major chord. A half step up from here is F sharp. This is an F sharp chord. And on the 3rd fret is G, so I know this is a G major chord. And just to be sure, let's play a G major chord how we know how to play it down here. And it sounds just almost identical. So we know it's a G major chord. Okay? Keep in mind you're playing an E shape, but what you're hearing is a G major chord. Okay? And you can go all the way up the neck with that. Okay? So if you wanted to go up another whole step, so from 3rd fret to 5th fret, you're playing an A major chord, just to be sure. That's an A major. That's an A major. Okay, another step and a half. So A, A sharp, B. That's a C note. That's where my root is. So if I've got my root note here and I play the E shape on top, I'm playing a C major chord using the E shape. Okay, don't let that confuse you. So let's be sure here. Here's our C major chord. That's a C major chord. Okay, you can see how it sounds very similar. Any chord that you know how to play down here can get moved. You may have to switch your fingers around a little bit to free up your first finger to make your own little fake capo, but everything works. The reason that does work is all the pitches change. For instance, let's play our C major chord here. I want to free up my first finger, so I'm going to play a C major using my last 3 fingers and create a fake capo. Now I can move that C shape. Okay, so if I move it up a half step, this is a C sharp major chord, and this is a D major chord, another half step up. Sounds just like a D chord. Okay. Now all of the notes change, but the intervals between the notes don't. Okay, so that's why the chord sounds the way it does. The quality of the chord doesn't change, but the pitches do. So that's why you're going to play a different sounding chord. So here's my C shape again. If I go up a whole step, I play a D chord. It's a D sharp major chord. Here's an E major chord. Sounds just like an E chord here. Right? Using my C shape, I'm playing an E chord. Here's a G chord using a C shape. Okay, let's try the D-shaped chord. This one's a little tougher. But if you're only going to be using the 3 strings on top and not strumming any of the other strings, you really don't need to change your fingering. So let's move that D shape, let's move it up a whole step. So D, D sharp, here's an E chord. Here's an F chord. Here's a G chord. You see how that works? Then the pitches change, but the intervals between the notes don't, so the quality stays the same. And that works with any scale that you learn. If you in the future, when you start learning scales, if you want to learn like a major scale or do re mi scale, you can play it anywhere you want. Okay, so just depending on what the root is, that's the name of the scale you're going to play. For instance, what I just played was a G major scale because I started on the G note and then ran through the do re mi fa sol la ti do, do re mi fa sol la ti do. Now once I learned that pattern, I can play it anywhere I want, and I can play any different major scale I want depending on where I start. So if I started that same pattern on a C note up here and went through the same pattern, do re mi fa sol la ti do, that's a C major scale. Same pattern starting on an A note, that's an A major scale. Okay, any scale, any chord, any arpeggio, any progression that you work with or learn, in theory, you can play it anywhere you want in any key. It's just a matter of moving it around on the fretboard. So I hope that makes sense to you guys. You know, try it with all your chord shapes. Take your A chord shape, move it around. Your G chord shape is going to be a little tougher, just because you don't want to make an entire G shape like this. It's not really practical. So a lot of times I'll use what's called a partial chord. If I look at the top 4 strings, starting from the D string, open, open, and then 3rd fret, and then make my capo, I'll just play the top 4 strings and just move it like that. So technically it's a G shape, but I'm just not playing all the way across the fretboard. I'm just using a partial chord. One more cool thing you can do with partial chords. I know I'm digressing a little bit, but for instance, let's take an E-shaped chord and let's work it up a little bit. So I'm on a G chord here. If I don't want to play the entire fretboard, like all 6 strings, let's say I only want to play strings 6, 5, and 4, the 3 strings closest to you, I really don't even need anything else underneath it, okay? So I'm going to do what's called a power chord. I'm going to play that string. So this is the 3rd fret of the 6th string with your 1st finger. Middle finger is here on the 5th fret of the A string, and your pinky is going to be on the D string of the 5th fret. Okay, the rest of the strings are kind of muted, and what I'm doing is I'm resting my 1st finger on those strings, but I'm not fretting them. Okay, and it kind of mutes them. These bottom 3, however, I am fretting. This is what's called a power chord. All right, I'm playing a root, a major, or a perfect 5, 5th, and an octave. Okay, and depending on what note is here, that's what chord I'm playing. So this is a G note, so I'm playing a G power chord. Okay, I know a lot of rockers and punk music play these types of chords. It comes from the E shape, but it's just partial. I'm only using these strings here. Okay, and I can move that up really easily, move it up and down. So here's a G power chord, A power chord because I know that's my A note, B power chord, C. Okay, and it works like that. You can also do it on this string set here, on strings 5, 4, and 3. And if you know your notes on that string, you'll be able to name the chords with those power chords as well. That comes from the A shape. Okay, so here's your root, here's your 5th, here's your octave. So that's a C note, that's a C power chord. From a D note, D power chord. So that's a little bit on partial chords as well. But if you guys have any other questions, just message me or get in touch with me, and I'm happy to clarify anything that I can. I know I rushed through a lot of it, but it's just to get you an idea of what this stuff can do, and to get you playing and having fun right away. All right, thanks guys.